speaking practice, and I'm just going to play a part of an audio now to make sure that you can hear it. So here goes.
Hey, Jessica, aren't you studying to be a broadcaster? This opportunity will be...
Everyone could hear that okay? Just okay if you could hear it, and no if you couldn't. Excellent. All right, great. Okay, we're ready to go. So another TOEFL speaking session, and today we're actually going to be looking at task 2 and 3. So these tasks are related because they're both conversations and they're both about campus situations. So with both of these, you're going to listen to students talking on campus about something to do with the university. And task 3 is about summarizing an opinion. So the two speakers are going to be discussing their opinion about something that you're going to read in a passage. So you're going to have 45 seconds to read a passage. Then you're going to hear two students discussing what was in the passage. Then you're going to have 30 seconds to prepare your response, summarizing their opinion. And then you're going to have 60 seconds to speak. So the structure of your response could look something like this: the issue, the opinion, and the reasons. So introduce the issue, which is going to be presented in the reading passage. Then you're going to introduce what the speakers think about that issue, which you're going to hear in the conversation. And then you're going to have to give the reasons or summarize the reasons that they give for that opinion. So there's your little formula. Let's look at an example. So this is kind of what it's going to look like on your computer on test day for task 3. You're going to be presented with a short reading passage, and you're going to see the timer there on the right left-hand corner outlined in red, and the timer is going to be counting down from 45 seconds. Once that 45 seconds is up, the reading passage is going to disappear, and you're going to hear two students discussing what was in the passage. Then you're going to see the prompt on the screen, and you're going to hear it read out to you. The man expresses his opinion of the announcement regarding the new library policy, state his opinion, and explain the reasons he gives for holding that opinion. So the questions for this task type are going to be similar. Either the man or the woman expresses his or her opinion about whatever was in the reading. In this case, it was the the library policy. State his or her opinion and explain the reasons. So the formula for that question is very similar. You're going to have 30 seconds prep time and 60 seconds speaking time. Okay, so now that you know what that looks like and what to expect, let's give it a shot. Let's practice. So pens and papers ready, because you're going to want to take notes of the reading. You're going to have 45 seconds. Here goes. Okay, listen to the conversation between two students. And again, guys, remember to take notes. Very, very important.
Hey, Jessica, aren't you studying to be a broadcaster? This opportunity will be great for you.
Yes, I am. I'm taking lots of radio broadcasting classes that will prepare me for working in radio. But I'm taking extra classes this semester in art and English.
Why are you taking those? They're not really related to broadcasting.
Diverse classes look good on a resume. Employers like to see that you have a broad range of knowledge in different fields. Broadcasters have to draw on knowledge of different subjects as part of their job.
But don't you think that a job as a broadcaster for a university radio station might look good too?
Maybe you're right, but I'm already so busy.
You could always cut back on your study time for your extra classes. Experience in your field might be worth more than a few good grades in classes that aren't even required for your major. Maybe you could drop some of your non-major classes altogether so you'd have time for work. Most employers, especially in technical fields, really value practical work experience over grades.
Those are some things to think about. I hope there are still positions available.
Okay, you now have time to prepare your response. So here's the prompt. The man expresses his opinion of the announcement regarding working on the student radio station. State his opinion and explain the reasons he gives for holding that opinion. So again, the formula for your response could be state the issue from the reading, give the opinion of the man, and give the reasons why he thinks this. You have 30 seconds to prepare your response. Okay, time is up. You can now record your response if you like. You can record your response on your phone. That way you can listen back to yourself and then you can compare it to the samples, because after your response, I'm going to let you listen to a couple of samples. As long as you speak out loud, okay? This is a speaking practice task, so you really want to practice speaking and remember to watch the timer, okay? So that you can structure your speaking so that you have enough time to actually finish. Okay, here goes. And that's the end of your time. All right, I'm going to now play for you one sample student response, and then we're going to discuss and evaluate that. And then I'm going to let you listen to the same student again, but a slightly different response so that we can compare them. Okay.
The speaker talked about classes that may not be required for a major. He talked about having a broad range of knowledge not being helpful, and he finished by saying that employees value work ethics, so she should not take extra classes that may not be useful for her major. But he also agreed that even though classes may not be helpful, she should prepare herself for working in radio.
Okay, how do you think that student did? Let's take a look at the evaluation and go through her response together. So probably that response was not a 4, possibly not even a 3. So let's look at 2. The speech was marked by at least 2 of the following. Speech requires listener effort, choppy pace, and unclear pronunciation. So I would say that the pace was choppy, meaning that the student stopped and start. It lacked fluency, the response. Let's look at this one here. Limited range of grammar and vocabulary that prevents full expression of ideas. Well, the student spent so much time sort of stopping and starting and repeating that we weren't able to see a big range of grammar and vocabulary there. Though there weren't a lot of mistakes, it was just a limited range. And then if we look at point 3, the response is connected to the task, but some ideas are limited or repetitious. So that student didn't really develop her response. There was some sort of repetition of ideas and probably didn't really hit the point. So that was a lower level response. Let's listen to the same student, but higher level response. So here goes.
The man thinks that the woman should apply for a job at the university radio station and get some practical work experience in broadcasting because this would be perfect for her from an employment point of view. But she countered by saying that she doesn't have any time for a job because of her busy schedule and because she's taking subjects such as art and English, and because these offer her a broad range of knowledge. But he still thinks that she should drop them to make time for her work at the radio station. He thinks that the experience working at the station would look better on her resume than some extra classes that are outside her field of work. Many workplaces value practical experience over grades, was his final argument.
Okay, let's take a look. So where would you place this response on the scale here? It would probably be around a 3 or a 4. The speech was well paced and her pronunciation was very clear. Her use of grammar and vocabulary was quite accurate. There may have been some small errors, but they didn't affect the meaning. We were still able to understand everything she said. And her response was well developed and her ideas were logical. They clearly progressed. And she really covered all aspects of the task. So what I'm going to do here is stop the presentation. And if you have any questions or comments about task 3 before we move on to task 5, let's discuss them. So any questions about the samples that you heard or the formula that we used? So in the first sample, the student didn't really use the formula, which is the issue, the opinion, and the reasons. She sort of gave the issue, but it was a little bit off. She didn't really go into too much detail. Whereas in the second sample, she clearly stated what the issue was, that there was, what was the issue? I've just gone blank. The issue was an ad in the, for a job in the university radio station, and the opinion of the man was that the girl should apply for that job. And that she shouldn't waste her time doing extra subjects that were outside of her major, because although that could contribute to her grades, real life practical experience in her field would be more beneficial than her grades. So that was the guy's opinion. So as long as you sort of covered that and stated those things, then you gave a full response. All right, so we're ready to move on to task 5. Let's do it. Okay, task 5, summarize a problem. It's a very similar task. You're going to listen to a conversation. So this one doesn't require a reading. You're going to just listen to a conversation where the students are going to be discussing a problem and then 2 solutions. Your job is to summarize the problem and the 2 solutions given, and then state which solution you would choose to that problem and why. And the formula or suggested formula for the response is the problem, the solutions, your choice, and why. So the problem the speakers are discussing is, the 2 solutions offered are, I would choose which solution, and then why would you choose that solution? So let's take a quick look at an example of what this will look like on test day. So you're going to hear a conversation, and then you're going to get your question, which usually looks something like this. Briefly summarize the problem the speakers are discussing, then state which solution you would recommend, explain the reasons for your recommendation. All right, so you're going to have 30 seconds to prepare and 60 seconds to speak. So time for practice. So listen to the conversation and take notes.
Hey, Sandy, how are things going?
I'm so glad it's the end of semester. It's been so stressful. But I've got a problem.
What's the matter?
Can you believe this? My computer stopped working yesterday. I took it to the repair shop and they said it won't be ready until the end of next week, which is when all my papers are due.
Why not use the computer lab? They've got lots of computers there.
I know, but it gets so noisy there that I can't keep my mind on my work. I mean, when I'm at the computer, I'm not just typing, I'm thinking. So I need quiet to concentrate. People there are quite rowdy.
Maybe you could try going in the morning or evening. It might be less noisy then.
Maybe, but this time of year, everybody's cramming and working on papers, and it'll probably be more crowded than it usually is.
What about calling back the computer repair shop and telling them it's urgent? They might be able to get it fixed earlier, like by the beginning of next week instead. That would still give you enough time to finish your papers by the end of the week.
Oh, I hadn't thought of that. The only problem is that the shop is closed today and tomorrow for the holiday weekend. So it would be a few days before I could talk to them.
Time to prepare your response, and here's your question. Briefly summarize the problem that the speakers are discussing, then state which solution you would recommend, explain the reasons for your recommendation. Again, the response is state the problem, state the solutions, state your choice of solution and why you would choose that solution. 30 seconds to prepare. All right, time's up. Time to record your response. And your time starts now. Okay, time's up. Again, I'm going to let you listen to 2 sample responses. And this time I want you to think about what score you would give these samples based on the evaluation scale of 1 to 4. Okay, here is the first sample.
So the woman and the guy are discussing about the problem of the woman who has a broken computer, and it's and the guy recommended that she goes to the computer library, and then the woman said that it's kind of noisy, rowdy, and the computer never cannot be fixed anytime soon, and yeah, that's it.
All right, so how would you compare that sample to your own response? Let's take another look at the evaluation scale from 1 to 4. So just think about or type into the comments what score you would give that response. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Sorry, 1, 2, 3, or 4. So there's no right or wrong answer. It's just about you sort of learning how to recognize or to understand the evaluation. So how your speaking is evaluated and recognize where you are on the scale in comparison to another sample. So let me take a look. Okay, yeah. So a 1 to 2, yeah, so it's on the lower end of the scale. I think Zaki is pretty harsh. 0. I mean, it was a lower end response, yes. You'd only get a 0 if you didn't actually make any attempt to answer the question, or if you sort of gave a completely memorized response or a response that had nothing to do with the task. Okay, so a couple of 2s there. Yeah, that's pretty much accurate. So let's go back. All right, let's look at 2. So this is what most of you gave it. The speech is marked by at least 2 of these things. The speech required listener effort. Yes, it took some effort to listen to what the speaker was saying. And the pace was choppy. Choppy meaning stops and starts. And he did that. The speakers talk about, the speakers discussed, the guy mentions. Okay, so that's choppy and repetitive. Limited range of grammar and vocabulary. Yeah, it was limited because he kept sort of repeating himself, so we weren't really able to hear the full range of his language skills and his ideas. The response was connected to the task, but some ideas were limited or repetitious. So this was another major fault with that sample, was that the ideas were limited. He didn't really go into a lot of detail about what the speakers discussed, and they were repetitious. I don't think he actually even mentioned which solution he would choose. So didn't really sort of answer the question. If we look at 1 says limited relevant content. I mean, the content was relevant. It was all related to the task. It just wasn't developed enough, and there was some repetition. All right, let's look at or listen to the second response.
The students are discussing the woman's problem. Her computer broke and is being repaired, but won't ready until the end of next week. The woman has all of her assignments due at that time and no computer. The man suggests that she use the computer lab, but the woman says they are too noisy and she can't concentrate. And at this time, it is busier than usual. The man then suggests that she call the computer repair shop and ask if they can finish her computer early. She likes the idea, but it is holiday weekend and she won't be able to get in touch with them for the next few days. Personally, I would spend the holiday weekend working in the computer lab. I'd wear earplugs so I could concentrate. Then when they open, I'd call the shop and ask if they can fix my computer early.
Okay, what did you think of that one? Scoring from 1 to 4. Let me take a look at your feedback. Yeah, so that was much better, wasn't it? It was a much better response. Great progression of ideas. He followed the formula, so he presented the issue or the problem, mentioned the 2 solutions, and then at the end, the solution that he would choose and why. What about the pronunciation? Was the pronunciation and pace clear? So do you think he went too fast? Yeah, so he spoke probably a little bit too quickly. You don't have to speak that quickly, but there wasn't a lot of pausing. There wasn't a lot of false starts or choppiness there. But yeah, it could have been a little bit too fast. What else? What about pronunciation? Could you understand everything? So remember, pronunciation and accent are 2 different things. You can still have an accent as long as the speaker can understand the words. So the point here is not to speak in an American accent or a British accent or an Australian accent. Still speaking like you, but just pronouncing your words so that the speaker can understand each word. Okay. Good. Any questions about tasks 3 or 5 that we looked at in this session? What about your own experiences with these tasks in the real test? Would you anyone like to share their experiences if they've done it before? Any advice they would like to share with their colleagues? I think I mentioned once before in another session that when I did the test, I was in a room with other people, and you're wearing headphones and you need to speak, but at the same time you can hear other people speaking, and so it's easy to sort of get distracted because you're hearing the person next to you speak. And I was sitting next to someone who had a really loud voice, and so I couldn't help but hear him, and it was a little bit distracting. So practicing at home is a good way, I've mentioned it before, to practice with the radio on or the television on when people are talking, so that you get used to just concentrating regardless of what actually is going on around you. Yes, good, David. Practice note-taking skills. Excellent. It's a very, very important skill. So what you want to do with the note-taking, you don't have to take down everything. Okay, what you do have to decide is, as you're listening, what's important, and then everything else that's sort of not important, just let it go. And then in your notes, you don't have to actually use every single thing that's piece of information that's in your notes. When you've got that 30 seconds to look at your notes, that's when you want to decide, what's important here? What am I going to use? What am I not going to use? And identifying main ideas or definitions or problems or solutions. And then within those, looking at the details and the examples. And you only need to really give 1 or 2 details to each main idea. Now, if we go back to task 3, let me just find it. Task 3, your main ideas are the issue, the opinion, and the reasons. These are your main ideas. So when you look at your notes, what you want to identify is what's the issue. The issue here was a job for the university radio station. What was the opinion? The opinion of the guy was that the girl should apply for the job. And what were the reasons? He gave 2 reasons, because practical experience is more important than grades, and it will help her get a job in the future. So sort of keeping it nice and simple, doesn't have to be too complicated. The same thing with task 5. Let me just find that. So when we talk about main ideas, this might make it a little bit clearer. With task 5, the main ideas are the problem is the first main idea. And the problem here was the girl's computer was broken. Solution is the second main idea. And there were 2 solutions: work in the lab or call the repairers. Which solution you would choose? That's a third main idea. And then why, that's your supporting, that's your supporting information, your explanation, which is important to giving a fully developed response. Okay, I'm just looking at some of your comments. Yeah, so, a lot of you won't feel that comfortable with the speaking because it isn't very natural. This is not something, we speak every day, yes, but we don't always speak about these types of situations. Again, the TOEFL is an academic test, so the conversations are all going to be related to an academic or university life context. And maybe it's been a long time since you were in university. So, these aren't sort of conversations that you're used to having or hearing. So that's fine. That's where practice really comes into it. The more familiar you become with these tasks, the more comfortable you're going to feel. And the more practice you have, the more confident you're going to feel. And you'll learn the strategies as you go. So practice really, really is the best thing in order to prepare you for this test. Okay, note-taking strategies for task 5. Well, really you want to sort of base your notes on these. You know that task 5 is about summarizing a problem. So your notes are going to be, as you listen, really listen for, okay, what's the problem? What are they talking about? And that's always stated at the beginning of the conversation. All right, and then your solution is going to be your next thing that you really want to listen and pay attention to. So that's what your notes are going to be about, the problem and the 2 solutions. Then in the preparation time, that's where this part comes in the 30 seconds preparation. You're going to look back at your solutions and think about which one you're going to talk about or choose and why you would choose that. So there's lots of practice on the website. If you guys have registered with E2 Language, you can go into the speaking tab and there's lots of practice for these tasks where you can practice your note-taking skills as well as your speaking. Listen to lots of samples, and there's also assessments where you can actually record your speaking and submit it for feedback, which will be really helpful in identifying areas of improvement, as well as seeing your own improvement as you go. It will really help to build your confidence. All right, guys, thank you so much for joining me again, and I'll see you back next week. Next week, we're going to look at the lectures, which is task 4 and 6, and how to listen to lectures and also take notes for lectures, and the types of questions that you're going to see with these tasks. Okay, thank you. Bye.